Hey there and welcome. This is as always Mikhail or Michael speaking. Before I start this video, I want to say thank you all who decided to support me financially, be it through Patreon, PayPal or Super Thanks. Words cannot describe how thankful I am to you, so thank you and have a blessed day. Now, today's video I will start with the town of Bakhmut, or to be more specific, situation that is currently developing in Ivanyivske village. All throughout last 24 hours, Russian forces, like yesterday and the day before, continued to attack within the village itself, as well as to the north and to the south of it. And as a result of these successful offensive operations, were able to advance within Ivanyivske and capture these territories in the last 24 hours. As you can see, Russians further expanded their control along Tereshkova Street. First, they've done so in the south and now in the north as well, thus putting Ukrainian formations that were still defending this portion of the street into a semi-encirclement. This in turn forced Ukrainians to retreat from this street and leave these positions altogether and take defense along Voronezhska Street. As I record this video, offensive operations here continue, and it seems that soon this territory will be acquired by the Russians, because as you can see it is already within the gray zone, and there are reports of Russians conducting clearing operations along the street. All those recent Russian advances were supported by massive use of artillery and aviation, which of course is an important contribution to the storming efforts. And here on this video you can see Russian close air support warplane flying over city of Bakhmut after finishing its tasks. It seems that if the situation will not change, Russian forces will be able to capture Ivanyivske in a week. Then from Bakhmut let's move to the Seversk frontline and discuss situation around village of Belogorovka. If you remember a few days ago, Russians made insignificant advances here along this road, which was seemingly part of positional style of warfare, but it seems Russians restarted their offensive operations in Belogorovka and all throughout the last few days were continuously attacking in its direction across these open fields, as well as from this filtration factory, which they use as a staging point for attacks on this flank. And as a result of successful storming operations, this is exactly how much territories Russian forces were able to acquire. As you can see with these attacks, Russian forces were able to capture last tree lines that standed in between Russian forces and Ukrainian formations within Belogorovka, and with it we may expect direct Russian attacks in the direction of this village fairly quickly. Here, as you can see, Russians advanced along the roads and reached the very first buildings of the village itself, with this general area became a battlefield for the time being. As I speak, battle here continues, with Russians starting to storm Belogorovka from this flank. Now, if you enjoyed this video so far, I would want to kindly ask you to consider supporting this video with a like, comment, and of course, if you haven't subscribed, a subscription. Those actions, as you know, help support this channel and help this video's reach, and in turn, this will help spread the message. Thank you for your consideration, and let's move on. From here, let's move all the way to the town of Avdiivka and discuss situation here. As you know, all throughout last week, Ukrainians were actively counterattacking Russians in attempt to stop their advance here. After fall of Avdiivka, everything seems to escalate relatively quickly, with Russians advancing without stop and Ukrainians through everything they can to repel this Russian assault. So far, these Ukrainian counterattacks were relatively unsuccessful, with the amount of losses piling up high. For example, here on this picture, you can see the end result of yet another unsuccessful Ukrainian attack, in which they lost another Abrams tank and a Bradley vehicle. It happened in the village of Berdichi. It seems that Ukrainians ran out of reinforcements as their attacks became less and less intense, which allowed Russians to start attacks of their own. As I speak, Russians restarted their offensive operations in the direction of Berdichi, within Orlivka in the direction of Semenivka, and from Tanenki in attempt to capture this village completely. Those news are extremely fresh, and the results of these Russian attacks is unclear at the moment. Not going too far from Avdeevka, let's discuss situation in Pervomaiske village. All throughout the last few days, Russians were continuously assaulting not only within the village itself, but also from Vodyane in the direction of the village center. And as a result of successful offensive operations, were able to advance this far and acquire more positions within the village. There were also reports that Russians were able to reach the center of the village itself, but then Ukrainians counterattacked and were able to stabilize the front. However, they were unable to completely retake all positions lost in this day, and as you can see, Russians were able to retain these positions. As you can see, Ukrainian formations fighting within Pervomaiske are at a great disadvantage, as they find themselves being attacked both from southeast as well as from the north, right to the flank and rear of their supply routes. And with the fact that Russians had already reached the center of the village once, it seems that the battle for this village is entering its last phase. From here, let's go even more to the south and discuss situation around village of Pobieda. As soon as Russians were able to take control over this village, they found themselves defending against relentless Ukrainian counterattacks. This did not allow Russians to go on the attacks on their own, and all this time they were repelling these said attacks. Again, it seems that the intensity of Ukrainian attacks is slowly dying out as their reserves are being depleted, and as soon as Russians realized that, they went on the attack of their own. And as a result of successful storming operations, were able to acquire these territories in the process. As you can see, Russians were able to acquire this big force line, which of course will help them to stabilize this entire front and help further expand the buffer zone around the village. Then from Pobieda, let's go further to the south and discuss the situation in Novomykhailivka. If you remember, yesterday I reported of Russian attacks that managed to achieve an important territorial gain. This facility here, which Ukrainians were using as a stronghold to stop all Russian attacks that were coming from the south, and as you can see, Russians take full control over it. And here is exactly how much territories Russian forces took within the last 24 hours. Like I said yesterday, with this territorial gain, the entire southern part of Novomykhailivka is under threat of Russian attacks, which can greatly hinder Ukrainian defensive capabilities in the center of the village. Generally speaking, Russians continue their storming operations within the village, actively attacking along all the streets in the city center, reaching it successfully. And as a result of that, we're able to acquire yet another small portion of the town within the last 24 hours. As you can see, Russians are now advancing towards the center from all possible directions. Also, more and more videos of Russians putting up flags within important buildings of this town, like you can see here on this video. And of course, these videos really help to determine how far Russians went. As you can see, Russian offensive here grows in scale and intensity, with territorial changes coming from within and around the village almost daily. This means that to this day, Ukrainians are unable to stabilize the front line and are slowly losing the battle for Novomykhailivka. And of course, if nothing done, we can expect this village to fall fairly soon. With this, I gladly end this video. Hopefully it was to your liking and was informative enough. Of course, thank you for being here. As always, humanity calls me to condemn all violence against human beings. Have a good day, and always remember, Russia will be free and great.